You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, and thanks again for tuning in to our little old show. Did you know that Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail started nearly 2 years ago, and that today is episode number 99? When I first started the show, I remember saying to somebody that I'd be disappointed if I got only 100 downloads before the end of the year, but maybe I was being a tad over-optimistic when I hoped that we get 1,000 downloads. Well, we passed 1,000 before November was out and started pushing on. Soon I was announcing 10,000 downloads, then 25,000, then 10,000 a month, and now, 99 episodes later, if you include today's show, we're getting over 20,000 downloads a month and nearly 350,000 in all. I want you all to know that I'm so grateful for the support that you've given me for these first 99 episodes, and of course thanks goes to Trailtopia for sponsoring and encouraging me to keep at it. The show is consistent. We never miss the Thursday morning deadline for an episode. I try to find interesting people for you to listen to, and I take that part of the show really, really seriously. I'll be telling you about the 100th episode next week a little later on, but I wanted to recognise you all for the vast contribution you've all made to my totally unexpected post-retirement happiness in my 60s. Today's guest is another little gem. Stephanie White is an ultra runner, so you may be wondering why she's even featured on the show. There are plenty of podcasts about running after all. Well, Stephanie's a competitor in super long-distance running events, and she felt that she needed a bit of a tune-up for a couple of big runs coming up this year. What better way to warm up than a little old hike along the Appalachian Trail? Yep, she did it as a warm-up. But what she found took her by surprise, and as it does with everybody who steps on it, she was changed by a hike. Stephanie will be here in a moment. I've got another 3 mini interviews from the recent Outdoor Retailer Summer Market with some interesting little gadgets, and we've got the first part of Chapter 10 of The Year We Seize the Day by Elizabeth Best and Colin Bowles. So we've got a lot to pack in. But first, it's time for a spot of lunch. How about those days when you struggle through the morning, probably got 10 miles under your belt, and breakfast is a distant memory? It's lunchtime, and yeah, you could always have your full Snickers of the day for yet another sugar rush. But sitting there in an empty shelter, protected from the bitter wind, I'm sure you'd really rather have Trailtopia's beef-flavoured ramen noodles with green beans, corn and mushrooms. D-flippin'-licious. And if you need to go without the gluten, all of Trailtopia's ramen noodle lunches and light dinners are available gluten-free. Try Trailtopia Adventure Food, the best of home cooking away from home. Now, let me introduce you to a newly minted Appalachian Trail thru-hiker, Stephanie White, or ultra runner. Here's Stephanie. Okay, we are now on with Stephanie White. Hi, Stephanie, how are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And we were introduced by, I guess, a mutual friend. She's a listener to my show, Jennifer.
Yes.
And she suggested I speak to you. And when I started reading about you, the first thing I read about you or realized about you, that hiking isn't actually your sport, is it?
It is not.
No. And yet you recently knocked out a 5-month hike of the Appalachian Trail, finishing on July the 13th.
Correct.
What were you doing on the trail? Why were you actually on the trail as a non-hiker?
Well, what led me to the Appalachian Trail initially was a training trail or journey for me because I am getting ready. I'm a long distance runner. I'm an ultra runner, and I am preparing for 3 different 200-mile distance races that I'll be doing this year. So I went out on the Appalachian Trail for lots of different reasons, mainly because I thought it would be safe to be out there for a longer period of time. I wanted to get my legs strong and ready and get used to climbing the elevation that the AT provides.
Wow. Did you think, I mean, if you don't mind me asking, that seems a real stretch to think that will be the right preparation for a running race, or do you think that the trail itself did provide you with the preparation you needed for the running?
I feel it did, both mentally and physically. Being out there day after day and doing long miles, hard days by yourself. I mean, that ultra running and doing these ultra races is so mentally and not only physically but very mentally exhausting and trying. So being out there and getting mentally strong was very important for me to do that. Just
Right.
getting braver and handling the elements. There were so many factors to that trail that I believe helped me prepare for these bigger, longer races.
So what are they? These races, I think you referred to them before as the Triple Crown running races. Is this a
Yes.
specific title? I mean, or is it a competition every year?
Yes, they do this once a year. It's over in the western part of the country. They call it the Triple Crown of 200s. It's the
Wow.
Bigfoot 200, the Tahoe 200, and the Moab 240. So
That,
that's what I'll be doing.
so you're doing these three races. How long did it take you to run 200 miles? And tell us about those races. I don't really understand the concept because you can't be running all the time, can you?
Well, the clock doesn't stop. Once it starts, you have a certain time period to get the mileage done. I've not, to this point, done a 200-mile race. I've done 12 different 100-mile races, but
Right.
this will be the first year bumping it up to 200.
So how long do you expect to take? Well, firstly, how long did it take you to run 100 miles? What's your best time?
My best time is 26 hours and 14 minutes. So I'm not a fast runner by any means. I'm not a very extremely competitive person, but
That's
I
ridiculously
enjoy it.
fast.
I enjoy it a lot, but I am definitely not one of the elite runners out there at all.
Really? So
No.
if you look at these things, you've done the 100-mile race and
Yes.
you've now done the 2,000-mile hike.
Mhm.
What are the similarities as far as you can see?
I would say the mental difficulties. You hit lots of walls out there on the trail. You have your bad days and things that you need to mentally work through, and you hit those walls also during a long distance or 100-mile race as well. So, I would say the biggest similarity is that and trying to get enough calories in a 100-mile race. It's my biggest challenge is getting enough food because
Right.
I tend to lose my appetite. And I also ran into that while I was hiking the trail, just trying to maintain calories because you're out there working so hard every day. You're blowing through so many calories. So
Yeah.
that was quite a challenge.
So you lost your hunger while you were hiking?
No. During races,
I'll say.
I have lost my appetite
Sorry, I
before.
meant lost your appetite. Yeah, yeah. Did you? I mean, I presume being physically as fit as you are, you probably don't weigh a great deal anyway. Did you lose weight on the trail?
I did lose some weight. I think I lost. I didn't really weigh myself too often, but I lost at least around 15 pounds. So
Is that a big percentage for you or not?
No, right now I weighed myself this morning. I'm 115 pounds right now. So yeah, that was a pretty good, significant. I noticed it. I
Wow.
noticed I was getting a little smaller. So.
And did you get the hiker hunger? Because when it
Oh
kicks in,
yes.
it's fantastic, and you can
Oh my goodness.
eat anything, can't you?
That was the best part of the trail. I got to eat everything I possibly wanted in any quantity, and that was awesome.
Yeah, and you know what the biggest problem is? When you get back home and
Yes.
you stop doing the running,
You
and
have
you
to tone
stop
it
doing the
back down.
hiking. Oh my gosh, yeah. Unfortunately, 4 years on for me, and I still haven't got over peanut butter. It's
Oh, yeah.
just a flipping not absolute nightmare for me.
Well, I do have a race coming up soon. It'll be August 10th, so I'll be leaving soon to head out there for that. And I'm doing my pre-race preparation, eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. So I'm gearing up for it.
All right. So now I know you're in your mid-30s, and
I
while I
am.
know there are certainly several people, of that age on the trail, it's definitely a smaller part of the overall demographic, isn't it?
Absolutely.
How were you able, because this is the time when you're building careers, marriages, and all that sort of stuff, how were you able to suspend your life for potentially 6 months?
Yep, that's a good question. I basically took this year off of work. I am a paramedic, and I have been for 9 years now. So
Oh,
I'm
bless you.
fortunate to be in a profession that's in a pretty high demand. Then I was able to step away from and return to whenever I'm ready to. But this year, I just pretty much took the year off to hike this trail and run these races and focus on that.
So
So,
this Triple Crown is one of these ambition type things, is it?
correct.
And what got you into that in the first place?
To do the, you mean to do
Yeah,
the 3 races?
to do the 3 races, yeah.
That's a good question. I started doing the 100-mile races and I did 12 of them. I haven't DNF'd and I just learned so much about it and I just thought I would be pretty good and this is a good time, at least in my life right now, to if I'm gonna go on a further distance, I
Right.
should do it now.
Is this a men and women thing? You know, is it, or do you in the women's race and there is a men's race, or do you just run against other runners?
Oh, just against other runners. Yeah, I'm out there just for personal growth and to have the experience and journey for myself. I'm not trying to beat anybody. I'm
Right.
trying to survive.
So your boss, when you went to him, said, "Look, I'm going to do a bit of a warm up for these 200-mile races, and
Yes.
it's going to be 2,200 miles long." He must have thought
Oh,
you were crazy. He must have thought you were
yes.
crazy.
He did. Luckily, him and I are good friends, and he did think it was nuts, and he's like, "Are you sure you wanna do this?" And I said, "Yes, I am," and then he's been supportive the whole time.
So you got on the trail. How quickly did you realize that the hike is special?
Oh, well, a week into the hike, I started having a lot of gear issues, with the rain and the equipment that I was having, so I
Yeah.
thought, "Wow, this is a lot more serious and intense than I was anticipating." Um,
Hang on, I must interrupt you there.
sure.
Why did you think it would be not serious or not intense?
I did. I thought it would be I thought I did a lot of, research and, read a lot of blogs and different things that people were writing about, but I don't think it prepared me for how it really is out there. It's a lot more difficult, especially with weather conditions, and I started early in February 18th, was my starting
Yeah.
date, which February was okay, but March, with all that snow and rain, that was a huge challenge that I wasn't quite prepared for. I adapted to it, but that took some work.
How did you handle that? How did you handle the cold weather, or were you just simply not expecting it? And did it impact your ability to hike? Because we're going to come to your gear in a minute, but
Okay.
how were you coping with that cold weather? Because that's so numbing. We follow a guy called Bruce Matson, another of our podcasts, and Bruce said he got to shelters and it just wasn't even warm enough to sit down and talk and eat. You had to eat and get straight into your sleeping bag as soon as
Yes.
possible. Did
That's
you find
exactly
that
how
as
it
well?
was. Oh, absolutely. It was a countdown. As soon as you got to shelters, we had to get out of wet clothes, wet shoes, get
Yes.
something to eat and crawl right into your sleeping bag. That happened so much. And the wind was the main problem because
Yeah.
you could be cold, but that wind just goes right through you. So it was
Yes.
really getting the right equipment and learning the techniques to try to stay as warm as possible. It was possible, but I had to learn it along the way because I didn't really have a whole lot of experience up to that point.
Yeah. You know, I think had I known how tough the AT was going to be, and I know I've said this on the show before, so I apologise to the listeners for this. Had I known how tough the AT was going to be, I would never have bloody well done it. I tell you, it was a nightmare for me to start with. But you do learn stuff on the way, don't you? Now,
Yes,
and you didn't equip yourself with the top end gear, did you? Where
I
was your
did.
which shop did you go to for your gear mainly?
Oh, I got some stuff on eBay. I got a few things from Walmart.
Excellent.
I did get some stuff from REI, but it definitely I didn't go in there as prepared as I could have been or should have been. But I was lucky to go into towns and fix that, resolve those issues along the way as soon as possible because if you're going to do a hike of the AT or spend any significant time out there, I would say more than a week, you've got to have a good sleeping bag, a good,
Sure.
most important, a good tent, and
Yeah.
good rain gear with a rain jacket and layers.
Did you ever consider a hammock, or did you just go straight for a
No,
tent?
no, I preferred the tent, and I had good luck with that, so that was fine. Once I got a good tent, I just stuck with it.
You didn't want to sleep in a shelter at all.
I rarely slept in the shelters. I really liked once I discovered stealth camping. That's what I ended up preferring. I would usually find a nice spot along a creek or a river, and I was just most peaceful out there. So I did a lot of stealth camping.
That's interesting. How did you cope with that? Because if you weren't used to it, did you pretty early on start camping by yourself and you felt comfortable in the woods?
Oh, no, not at all. I was scared of everything. I was
All
scared of
right.
my own shadow when I first started. I was looking
Excellent.
behind me about 100 times a
Of
day.
course you were.
Um, but no, once I realized that the woods is very peaceful and very safe, that then I started to become more brave. And then I really started to embrace it and just enjoy it so much. And
Isn't that interesting? Don't you think that's interesting how your preconceived notions of being alone, I mean, the thought of it now, if I'd never done this, if I was listening to this and I'd never done it, and there's you, a young woman, talking to me, an old guy, talking about being alone in the woods with animals around and it's dark as hell, yet you
Mhm.
feel, once you zip yourself into your tent, you feel totally at
Oh,
home,
yeah.
don't you?
I got the best sleep I've ever had in my life out there.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
cool. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Less things to worry about and just enjoying nature and being out there is extremely peaceful.
I think having fewer options
Mhm.
of what to do makes a difference, don't you? We get so many distractions in everyday life, and
Absolutely.
being out there with nothing else really to do other than to read, if you've got a Kindle or whatever it is, there's
Right.
very little you can do, is there, other than do the things you need to do to complete the hike.
That's right. It was really fun. You worry about how many miles you wanna do, where you're gonna set up your camp, and eating.
Yeah, that's right. And getting water, of course. Did
Yes.
and you obviously, as a runner, know about the importance of hydration. How
Mhm.
did you manage that when there wasn't water, or did you find it was a good year for water?
It was a very good year for water. We didn't really have too much of a problem with, all the we had our water sources were abundant, so it
Right.
wasn't really a problem.
And isn't that nice, to taste of spring water?
Oh, it's the best water in the world.
Yeah.
I
Who'd have
miss
thought?
it. I miss
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Who'd have thought? I never would have thought it.
Yes.
And what do you do for a filter?
I use the Sawyer, the larger one, not the small one.
Yes, that makes a difference as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So you said you were able to re-equip. So you would go into town, and did you then take advice in these shops, or were you asking your fellow hikers for advice as you went along?
It was, trial and error with what I had. I'd also kind of watch what other people were doing. I got suggestions on I had to get a new tent, so people gave me what worked for them, and so I took their advice on getting something good.
So what did you start with? It wasn't a Walmart tent, was it?
No, it was something I had gotten from I think it was Amazon. It was just a cheap little it's called Top Gear, this small tent, but the problem was condensation. It had no ventilation, so
Oh, right.
everything inside the tent would get wet, including me, my sleeping bag, and everything.
Oh, that's miserable, isn't
And
it? That is miserable.
when it's really cold, that's not a good thing because I never dried out. So I ended up getting a Big Agnes rattlesnake tent, and that was the type it was, and that was perfect. And I
Nice.
stuck with that the rest of the trip.
Yeah. Now, for doing what you do, you're obviously a seriously fit woman. Did you need to add any preparation training for the hike, or and if you did, how well did you cope with the physicality of the hike, or is it very similar in structure as as a run, or are there different physical limitations you have to overcome when you're hiking?
That's a good question. I had a pretty good base layer going into it, and I would go on weekend hikes and hike around where I live quite often before I started the
All right.
Appalachian Trail. So I started with a decent base, but doing the mileage that I was doing out there day after day, that is something that I just kind of adapted to while I was out there. And I really didn't have any major problems. My feet and legs were good. I enjoyed the fact that hiking is a little bit slower, so you could take in the sights and you're not running or rushing through anything. So it was nice to just enjoy nature in that sense.
And is that different to ultra running?
It is. It is. I mean, you can still slow down and enjoy everything around you, but the clock is going, so you're always in the back of your mind thinking, "Oh, I got to keep moving. I got to,
Yeah.
breaks are minimal." So this I enjoyed the slower pace of hiking, even though I would be hiking for 10, 12 hours a day. I still would go at my own comfortable pace, and I really enjoyed that. So I would just say it was very similar in the two, except for the pace of it.
Yeah. And what was your mileage? What was your best mileage on a day?
My highest day was 33.1 miles, but I
Oh
was
my
I
God.
was averaging
Crazy woman.
in the 20, usually in around 20 to 25 miles a day.
Wow.
Not every day, but I would take 0 days or Nero days here and there. And I did take a trip to California at the end of April to do the Badwater 81. It was
Of
the
course you did.
Salton Sea 81-mile race. I was signed up for
Oh,
that before I started the trail, so I was committed to doing that one.
that's interesting. So did you notice the difference? Was that a time when you realized the difference between hiking and running? Because you
Yes.
went straight from hiking to running, then running straight back to hiking, I presume. Or did you go home for a while?
Nope, I didn't go home. I didn't want to get distracted from the trail, so I went and did the race and went straight back to the trail. I was in the Shenandoahs at the time. So, but no, I definitely felt the power in my legs when I was doing that ultra. So that I thought, okay, I'm right on track for getting ready for the Triple Crown.
Wow, that is just it's just amazing. So when you're out there and you have, as you say, you had this extra time to think, did you find yourself confronting, emotions within you, or did you discover much about yourself on the hike?
Absolutely. That's what the beauty of this trail. They in the very beginning of the trail, people kept saying the trail will provide, and I never quite understood what that meant until further into the hike. And I realized that the trail seems to, in my opinion, provide so much for what people need out there, whether it's to deal with emotions, deal with some sort of struggle or pain or loss in their life. And that was the same for me. I realized I had a lot of emotions out there that I had not really set the time and energy out to think and process through. But being out there, you're forced to. You're out there by
I
yourself
agree.
all day, so you have nothing but time to work through anything that you is possibly bothering you. So I feel like I had a lot of self growth, a lot of realizations about my life, just so immensely beneficial. I can't even put to words how amazing it was.
Did you learn something about yourself when you were there, or and you can address emotions, or do you think to yourself, I mean, sorry, I'm phrasing this badly. What I mean is, when you get to the end, and we're going to come back to the ending in a minute, but when you get to the end of this hike, did you take something from it, of what you'd learned or discovered about yourself as a person?
Mhm. Oh, so many things, a lot. I just seeing human kindness and restoring my faith in humanity was a big one. I feel a lot calmer just in my own personal um, emotions and just day to day life. I just feel like little things little things are not really a big issue that I used to think were. And just taking things a little slower and observing rather than being quick to react or proving my point. I used to feel like that it was important to get my opinion out there, but right now I feel like it's more important to listen to other people and just kind of understand what they're trying to say and the perspective that they have, whether I agree with it or not. Um, so yeah,
Wow,
I took a lot from this trail of
wow, that's
how
something.
I want to live my life going forward. Oh, I'm
You got
sorry.
you got your phone, haven't you?
I'm turning it off. I'm sorry. I don't know who keeps calling.
So it's made you address the way you are with other people, perhaps, and relationships. Now how you
Yes,
deal with them.
absolutely.
Do you know what? I've often wondered why that is. It's one of those elusive things. I think it's because we take the time and we're less distracted.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and being out there and everything is just slowed down to a point where you're forced to just kind of observe around you and admire the beauty in relationships that people you encounter, things that happen that are funny or scary that build you up. And I just did a lot of observing and then realized that observing is kind of the way to go rather than reacting so intensely all the time.
wow. Have your friends noticed any changes in you since you come back?
I haven't really asked. I'm sure my husband would say that I'm a little bit calmer.
I'm sure you wouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe you would. Maybe you would. You never know, do you?
I'm
So,
not
so
sure.
and I know one of the things that people get when they finish the trial. A number of people do get very down, and they almost don't know it's happening to them. You're
Mhm.
now back for only 2 weeks, aren't you?
Yes,
You're probably still on a bit of a sugar high, sugar rush of
correct.
what it is. But you start do you miss the trail? Do you feel there's somewhere you feel you like to be back there for a little period of time?
Well, I'm lucky because I'm now focused on this next race. So
Of
I
course.
don't feel down at all because I will be back out in nature for 4 straight days doing this Bigfoot 200 race starting on August 10th. So I'm really grateful to be home and all of these amenities that we have that we don't have the pleasure of enjoying out there on the trail. But all of the things that happen on the trail that I did enjoy, I feel like I will be back in it soon. So I feel okay.
And could you get And I suppose you've already answered to a degree because you went away from the trail and did this 80-mile run anyway.
Hmm.
Did you find the physicality of the trail brought you down a bit physically, or because it takes a lot out of most people? Maybe it didn't
Does.
take a lot out of you.
No, it
Did it?
did.
When you were you physically exhausted?
I was. I was a little. My muscles were sore and achy, but like I said, I didn't really have any major injuries or blisters or anything. So I just I did a lot of resting, a lot of sleeping
Right,
when I got home.
right.
But that was about it. Otherwise, I feel good and ready to tackle the next challenge.
Are you back to running already?
I have not. I did do a small trail run with my dog 2 days ago, and
What's that? 50 miles?
no, no, we ended up only doing about 5 miles. I just
Oh,
wanted to make
you
sure.
slacker.
I know. I just wanted to make sure everything was working properly and everything was good, but I'm just really trying to conserve and rest up for these races and not push anything too hard. I'm more in taper mode right now.
All right.
I'm doing some cross training, just doing strength training at this point.
So I know that when you get off the trail, your feet do suffer quite a bit, and of course your feet are critical to what you do. Did
Mhm.
you get? You say you didn't get blisters. I mean, I got numb toe. All my toes were numb for about 6 months after the trail, and I lost all my toenails. Did you not? Did you choose the right footwear to wear? Because you probably know more about that than most people. Or did you just wear your running shoes?
I just wore my running shoes the whole
Oh,
time. I did switch. I wore Nike Frees, and they for most of the trip. I went through two pairs initially for the first 800 miles, and then I switched to another pair and did another 800 miles with them. And they held up really well, even in the snow and everything. They were pretty good. They would dry fast.
right.
But then for the last, once I got to Pennsylvania and all of those rocks, and even in the whites with all the rocks there, I ended up switching to some trail runners, the Ultra Lone Peaks. I think they're 3.5, that one. And I had great success with them, just having a little bit wider of a toe box. So
That's the thing that most people say. It's the wider
yeah,
seems to be the wider toe box. And as a runner, can you give some insight into that? Why that's important?
just because your feet swell so much as you're out there
Yeah.
working in the heat and everything, in cold weather or warm weather, your feet will swell. So it's nice to have a little extra room for that. So when I go to these next races, I'm going to bring both of them, both types of shoes. I like the Nike Frees because I've had good success with them, and I'm also bringing a pair of the trail runners, the Ultras, also.
Oh. I'd like you to, if you could, as you've just recently experienced it. Well, firstly, what was it like when you went above tree line in the whites? Don't you think that is the
Oh,
most
gorgeous!
extraordinary thing?
Yes,
I was laughing out loud, like giggling like a little girl when when I went above tree line for the first time there. It was just so exciting
it
up there, wasn't it?
was. Yeah, I think it was Musalak was the first one,
Yes.
and it just brought tears to my eyes. The just the beauty of it. It was incredible.
What sort of day did you go up on? Was it a sunny day?
It was, actually a huge storm was coming my way, so
Oh,
I
oh
got up
gosh.
there and enjoyed it, and then I was about a mile away from that shelter before the downpour started.
Yeah, didn't you notice it always did that?
Yes.
About a mile before the shelter, you think, I'm going to get there, I'm going to get there.
No, no, I was
Suddenly you're
soaked.
drenched.
Yes,
Suddenly you're drenched, yeah.
always.
One of the things that also that I had a problem with, and I suspect you may have a problem with when you do these ultra running races as well. I had a problem with regulation of temperature. You know, you'd get, because you're climbing, I'd get very, very hot, even on a
Mhm.
cold day. I'd have to take my jacket off. Then I get cold and have to put it back on again. Did you find temperature regulation was something you already cope with as a runner, so you could cope with it as a hiker?
Yeah, well, I kind of ran into that too. I would get quite warm. I had arm sleeves. It's like these sleeves that you can just pull up over your arms, and I was constantly putting them on and taking them off
All
all
right.
day long. So I would use those, but I use those. I learned that from the races as well.
All right. Now, one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, the second last thing actually, is, and I know I've talked about it in the past, but I haven't talked about it recently, so indulge me. Tell me tell me about the day you went up Katahdin. What was it like for you? Did you feel you were glad to be over, or could you describe going up there and getting on the tablelands and then seeing the brown sign?
Oh,
What was that
sure.
like for you?
It was honestly one of the best days of my life. was looking forward to it. I really just took it slow the whole day going up there because I really didn't want the day to end. So
Yeah. Were you by
I
yourself, by
just
the way?
no, a friend of mine from Massachusetts, Richard, he came up to,
Oh,
Summit with
lovely.
me, so it was nice
Lovely.
to be going up with a friend of mine, and
Sure.
we both just enjoyed the day. We took it slow and just enjoyed every part of it, but then all through the trail, I had thought of so many things I wanted to say because I started making these small little videos that I would put on my
Right.
YouTube or on my, Facebook, site and along my journey so people can follow along with me. So I had
Sure.
thought out all of this stuff that I wanted to say, but I tell you, as soon as I got up there, I was just went completely blank and just overcome with emotion, just so many different feelings at once, just elation, joy, being proud, just can't believe it's over, and then excited it's over, and then not so excited it's over, and just everything. And I just, it was very emotional, and it was perfect. I can't imagine it going any better. A lot of people were up there, and they were really nice. Um, they gave me some time to just go and touch the sign and take some pictures and finish my video and let me have that moment, which I really
That's a
appreciated.
feeling. Isn't that a lovely feeling? Those last few
Yes.
seconds
Oh my
before you leave.
goodness.
I'm actually doing it. I'm literally physically putting my hand forward now. It's pathetic, isn't it? I can feel putting my hand out, touching that side and knowing
That moment. You'll
it's a relief, isn't it? It's
we'll
definitely a
never
relief.
forget it. I know. It's hard to explain unless you've gone through that whole journey and get to the end right there.
Yeah. And now you've had a few weeks to reflect, and perhaps that reflection will just continue changing the whole time. Have your
Mhm.
thoughts changed from the day you summited?
Changed as far as what?
Well, have you been able to look back on it from a distance now, as opposed to those emotions you were going through at the time? Now the emotions are not part of it anymore. You're looking back and about the whole thing. Have your thoughts changed, or have just got stronger about the hike?
Oh, just stronger, just great memories. I mean, as much as the difficult times were just as important as the really fun and silly times, the people I met, amazing trail angels out there, and so many cool other hikers out there too. That so many unique personalities. So
Yeah.
it's the whole thing. Just looking back on the whole journey, there's not one part that's better than the rest. It's just the whole thing.
Don't you feel that, Stephanie, when you look at how it's written about on Facebook particularly,
Mhm.
it's normally people come across badly. I think there's so much crap written on Facebook about bad behavior on the trail. I'd never met anybody really, other than, well, one person maybe, but hardly any people really, who weren't anything other than friendly and pleased
Mhm.
for you that you were doing well. And it was such a revelation to me. And then I started reading what people were saying on Facebook. I think, oh my God, it wasn't like that at all.
No, no, everybody was so kind and so respectful of nature and not littering and really taking that seriously.
I agree.
So, and
I agree.
I was proud to be a part of that because, doing the whole no trace thing, and really make an effort to keep that gorgeous trail as
Sure.
amazing as possible for the next hiker that's coming up behind you. So,
Exactly.
no, I
Exactly.
saw nothing but respect and out there from other hikers.
Well, the reason I asked the question about, 2 weeks after you'd quit the trail, after you'd finished the trail rather, is that, in the 2 weeks after I finished, I said I would never, ever, ever hike again, ever. But, it just got within me, and I'm actually going to be doing the AT again next year.
Oh, are
Do you think,
you? That's
yeah,
awesome.
do you think you're ever going to hike again?
I would love to hike again. I'm not sure, if I will do the AT again. I have a nephew that's 11 years old, and he came out to visit me, once
Nice.
while I was on the trail, and he enjoyed the trail so much, so I would like to do a lot of section hiking with him.
Right.
But the John Muir Trail looks really fun to do, so yes, I'll definitely be out there hiking more. As a non-hiker going into the Appalachian Trail, I have a whole new respect and love for hiking. It was great.
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing it with me. I'm so glad that Jennifer put us in contact with
Me
each other.
too.
You really are quite something. You you
Well,
went
thank
on the
you.
AT. You went on the AT as a bloody warm up for a running race, which I
That's my
just can't get
training.
over. As your training. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
She took a week off the trail for an 80-mile run. I couldn't have driven 80 miles after my hike. What a thing to do, and how wonderful that she came to love the hike for itself, and not just as a warm-up for something else. These super fit people are extraordinary in their own discipline, but to be able to cross over that fitness to hiking and still experience the wonder of an AT through hike, I think speaks volumes for the pull of the trail. And she learned that it was more important to listen to what other people have to say and to live more in the moment. The AT strips you down to your bare necessities, and Stephanie drew from her strengths and realised some weaknesses. Don't go on a long-distance hike unless you're prepared for what you may find out about yourself. As you know, I was in Denver recently interviewing a few of the exhibitors parading their wares for next year's hiking season. This week, I've got 3 varied offerings for you. Let's start with Brian Dunster of Hydrolite. I was wandering past when I saw this thing, and at first I didn't believe it, but, well, let Brian convince you. There's a bit of static every now and then, but it doesn't ruin the chat that we had. By the way, all the links to these companies will be in the show notes. Here's Brian Dunster. Okay, I was just walking past this stall, Hydrolite International, and I met Brian Dunster, who, like me, has an accent. His isn't the same as mine. He's Australian, and he's got this great range of different lights. And I thought it's bound to be heavy, but it's not battery powered, is it? Tell us what it is.
No, Steve, it's we've been working on the technology for about 5 years now, and the beauty of the technology is that it's a fuel cell we use as our power source. And when I say fuel cell, it's a fuel cell in its purest form, in that the actual cell you dip in water to activate. It then uses oxygen as its fuel. It has a magnesium anode that erodes over time. That is the consumable. It has magnificent power density. Approximately 85 AA batteries is the equivalent to one cell.
85?
85 AA batteries, yeah.
That's good.
And from new, sealed from new, one of the benefits of our technology is that it has unlimited shelf life.
Right.
So literally you can sit on the shelf for 10 years, 20 years when you need the technology or the product for anything for that day or emergency. You simply undo the product, unseal it, dip it in water for 10 seconds, drop it in the product, and that can give you, we're quoting about 250 to 300 usage hours. So the beauty of that is that you literally can use it for 5 hours, turn it off, put it away in the cupboard, it stops the process.
Sure.
Dry out naturally, you simply dip it again, 10 seconds, and away you go.
Right.
So
you don't have to dip it every time, you just dip it after
it's dried out.
A certain number of hours,
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, I mean, average flashlight only gets used sort of 6 hours a year. So as you can imagine, you dip it, use it for that night, that evening, put it away, it'll naturally dry out.
And you've got different things here. You've got quite a large light, which I think wouldn't be terribly practical for hikers anyway. But then this small one, which is still pretty good size, but it's not heavy, is it?
No, it's very light, and we actually use that or promote that as a camping lantern for hikers. It's designed to go into the water bottle holder of your backpack. It has an accessory light option. It's got 3 LEDs. It produces really bright, usable light. And once again, if you use a single cell, will last for usage about 250 to 300 usage hours.
Right.
So the beauty of that is you can use it. Camping, you'll be away for 2 months and still use the same thing.
Is there any? Does the water need to be pretty pure? You put it in?
No, actually.
And it wouldn't
brackish water.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Salt water's even better.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And if you're actually really desperate and you're in an emergency situation, you can pee on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that wouldn't be very nice in the tent after a couple of hours. That wouldn't be nice at all. And there was another little add-on. You can plug. There's a little
little accessory light that we've got that allows. It has a 30-foot cord on it, so it allows you to plug it into the lantern and have the accessory light into a separate tent. So say you've got the lantern being used in one tent or out cooking or on a table playing cards, you can have the accessory light in the tent with the kids or whatever it might be, and that's independently turned on and off.
That's very cool. That's a really good idea.
So you've got basically 2 lights running off the one cell.
And I was expecting this to be more expensive than this. So tell us how much it costs retail.
Retail, they're about $35, $38, I think. That's including the cell. The cell itself is equivalent.
Because it's pretty hopeless without a cell, isn't it?
Exactly. So, but it comes with it. So replacement cells, I think, are about $12. So they're equivalent to 85 AA batteries.
Sure.
From, as I said before, sealed from new. They've got unlimited shelf life.
Sure.
So you can use them as an emergency tool. They can just sit there knowing that they're not going to be like a battery and depleted over time.
Right. And where can people get them?
At the moment, we're just going out to retail at the moment. Very shortly, they'll be available online, and they'll be going out through a number of retailers.
They'll be available online at
www.hydra-light.com.
So it's hydra-light.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So give us about 8 weeks, and we'll be up and running online for
That is very
fulfillment
cool.
out of there.
That is very cool. Thanks very much indeed.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
No worries at all. Nice
Cheers.
to meet you, Steve.
And you. How about that? I thought it was great, and it was really, really light. Batteries are heavy, there's no denying it, but this thing provides a great lighting solution. Check it out. The next thing from Zulu Audio takes another problem and does something about it. I've heard people say on that professional moaning platform, Facebook, that there is too much loud music in the woods, with certain inconsiderate folks blasting out their tunes from a Bluetooth speaker attached to their pack. This neat solution respects everybody's ears. Here's Jeff Arias of Zulu Audio. Okay, I'm here with Jeff Arias, Zulu Audio. Hi Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Now Jeff has got a solution to something that I had never seen before. Maybe they exist elsewhere. But one of the nuisance things when you're hiking is the loud music sometimes being played. And this is a nice cross between music being loud enough and not needing to have headphones. Tell us about what you've done.
So, yes, basically there is a problem in this space of plugging your ears while you are out riding or running,
Sure.
because you cannot hear ambient sounds.
Yep.
And you become, vulnerable to automobiles, trains, on and on. And so this inventor that I have licensed the patent from, purchased it, and founded Zulu Audio, patented the magnet backing for the speaker to be worn on your shoulders.
Right.
So it secures your speaker, so if you're running or cycling or hiking, your speakers are in place and they connect through Bluetooth to your phone.
Can I just interrupt you a sec? Because
Yes.
I did try them on. Jeff let me try them on. They're comfortable, which is a good thing. And and even though I only had them on for a few seconds, there's an intimacy to the music. Funnily enough, that was surprising to me.
Yes.
I like that as well.
That's terrific. And one of the first questions we get asked is, isn't that going to be annoying to all the other people around you? Well, you could turn it down so that just you hear it to your ears.
Yeah.
It's close enough. Or you can turn it up and your friends around you can hear,
Sure.
but you can still carry on a conversation.
Yeah.
And what we envision is that most people own around 4 to 5 different headphones
At
or
least.
headsets that they use. They've got a backpack. We just see this as being one of those 5 that are used when you go out hiking, running, or riding.
Riding is I cycle as well. Riding is a really important thing.
One of the things that's very important too is even in hiking, and somebody is on a mountain bike, people with a little bit of music and coming up behind somebody else,
Sure.
that they're aware, 1, your ears are free so you can hear the person behind you.
Sure.
2 is maybe a little bit of music so they can hear you coming. And and even events of like bears or animals that get scared or startled out on a trail.
Sure.
So we see that this is our niche to begin with, but we also see there's a lot of consumers that are afraid to even wear headphones at home because
Yes.
they can't hear the front doorbell, can't hear if somebody's knocking or
Sure.
a baby monitor. So we really see a broad use for this. It's portable, wearable speaker technology that we're bringing to the market.
And where can people get it?
So right now we're on Amazon and a number of other .com sites. There's a plaza.com, and we're just now, this is our first time at this trade show, and we've just gotten foray into a couple of large retailers
Right, good.
that are interested in picking up the product.
Yeah, so give us the name again so people know what to look for.
It's called Zulu Audio, so we're at www.zuluaudio.com, and that's ZULU audio.com.
But you had to spell that every day.
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, thanks for the time, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Cheers. There was just one more thing that Jeff was talking about. I asked him about whether it was waterproof. Tell us about that.
So they are rated at IPX4, which is sweat-proof and rain-proof.
Yeah.
They can get wet, but you want to dry them off for extended use to be able to preserve their life.
So don't go along in a downpour with them on.
Don't go in downpour or submerge them underwater.
Yeah.
At some point, we look to come out with an IPX7 rating, which would be able to submerge up to, I believe, 15 meters underwater.
Why you would actually want to do that?
No, exactly.
I couldn't actually tell you, but fine. Knock yourself out inventing it.
Yes, exactly. But right now, it's sweat and rain proof.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks.
Yes.
I really like that. As I said in our chat, there is a certain intimacy that it's hard to put across here, but you really have the best of both worlds. You can play your music, you don't piss off other people, and you can hear that bear as he's rumbling towards you. Happy days. Finally, here's another Brit, Barry Ryan of the splendidly named 8K Flex Warm. Barry was showing these great jackets for those extra cold mornings. Here's Barry. Okay, after searching around for about half an hour to try to find him, this is Barry Ryan of 8K Flex Warm. An unusual name, Barry. So tell me about the name first.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two parts to it really. So there's the outdoor brand, which is 8K, and we originally had like an outdoor extreme brand called 8K Extreme. We entered into a joint venture with a technology company in China called Flex Warm, who created innovative flexible heating technology that we use in our garments, and we just combine the two names essentially. So it's 8K powered by Flex Warm, but obviously so it's not much of a mouthful. We just made it 8K Flex Warm, but people call it 8K, people call it Flex Warm, really, whatever you remember.
And for listeners, by the way, I will not be providing subtitles because you're not going to understand either of us anyway. We speak a language known as English, not American English, so we'll see how that works out. Now, since I've been at the show, I've seen a number of people who do similar things to what you're doing. Tell us firstly what you're actually selling and what the theory behind it all is.
Yeah, so we're selling at the moment a range of outdoor apparel that's heated. So we're not the first people in the world to do that, and that's probably why you see more at the show.
Yeah.
But what makes ours very different to theirs is the heating technology that we use. So the traditional sort of heating method that a lot of the heated sort of outerwear brands are using is a method called carbon fibre. Now what that has is kind of thick, sparse wires.
Yeah.
And what you'll find is that doesn't conduct as well. It's just the wire area that's heated, so you get cold spots, and you don't get as much thermal coverage.
Right.
Flex Warm is different in that it's only 0.5 millimeters thick, and it's a printable heating technology, so it can be printed onto any surface.
Right.
So it's totally bendable. It's totally safe to machine wash. And obviously it's durable as well, so it survives many, like a wire. If you bend it and you move it for a period of time, it will break. Whereas with Flex Warm, you could do that, hundreds of thousands of times, and that the quality is maintained.
I presume you look at your competitors. Obviously, you do. Everybody does.
Yeah.
So do other people use Flex Warm?
No.
You've got the license.
So we've got the worldwide license for Flex Warm technology, so only we can use it in our product without permission. So obviously we launched the brand really just because we knew that heated apparel was out there, but we didn't think anyone had done it really well.
Yeah.
So people either the technology isn't really heating well enough, or isn't going high enough, and people aren't really feeling the benefits. You see a lot of heated jackets that have a lot of fill in there as well.
Yeah.
And my sort of thoughts on that, or our thoughts on that, were that if a jacket is heated, surely it won't need a lot of fill anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Because the heating technology should be enough on its own to keep you warm. And a lot of other brands have sort of aimed it at the workwear market.
Right.
So they're quite industrial or heavy duty. Whereas we positioned ours trying to really focus on like a fashion element to them, outdoor lifestylers who the sort of people who love going for walks in the mountains or in the countryside, but also just as well love going to walk the dogs in the park as well on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and one of the themes of this show has been that I've seen so far is ultralight in terms of hiking equipment. How much does this sort of a regular jacket going to weigh?
I mean, like I said, we have all the sort of the down stripped out of it and stuff like that, so we don't use any down in ours. It's just got a layer of sort of polymix fill inside it as well. So they're very, very lightweight, and which a lot of people, and I think that's one of the things that people have spoken to us about at the show as well, is that it could either be wear as sort of a mid layer, in many circumstances as well, especially for skiers and stuff. Yeah. Speaking to a lady a little bit earlier on who's a professional skier, and she was talking about wearing the jacket as a mid layer, so that it's closer to her skin as well. And people love that it's really versatile. So it's not just a jacket for winter. Yeah. You're not going to just get 3 or 6 months out of it. You're going to get all year round. This will still work in spring or summer as well.
Right, but tell us about the heat differential you can make up.
So the heat differential instead of how warm it can go.
Yeah.
So the technology itself, FlexWall, what makes it unique as well is we can actually get to 100 degrees Celsius.
So you can slowly boil to
Don't
death.
ask me what that is in Fahrenheit, by the way, because I'll get it wrong.
212.
Yeah, so there you go. Thank you very much, Steve. So you can get that hot with it. Obviously, there's reasons we can't go that hot.
Yes.
But it's got loads of different kind of applications and uses. So you could put it into a frying pan. You could cook on it if you went out camping and things like that. And so you could cook without needing any sort of heating equipment as well with you.
You can't cook on your jacket, can you?
Not yet, but you never know. If we get enough demand for it, anything's possible. So the other thing that you could put in a coffee cup. You could put it in your floorboards. You could heat your home as well. So it's really, really energy efficient.
Right.
Kind of heating technology with lots of applications, but the first kind of usage of it that's gone into the mainstream is us using it in the jackets as well.
Right.
So we've capped it at 50 or 122 Fahrenheit for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to go any higher than that for safety reasons, obviously. So we want people to be kind of nice and warm and toasty, where you're going to feel the benefits of it, but it's not going to overheat you as well.
And I think when we talked about doing this interview, I think I said to you, can you cool yourself down when you're hot?
No, not at the
Can't do
moment.
that, can
but
you?
You never know what you we do have the tech team are always working on new ways to kind of enhance it now. So there is a flex cool range, but combining the two at the moment is very, very tricky. But give it a few years, Steve. When we might
interesting,
be there.
yeah.
Watch this space.
That's an interesting thought. So what does one normally do then? How's it powered?
So how's it powered? So we include, excluding the price of the jacket, is a 7,500 milliamp power bank. Now we could use a lot higher than that, but he's just finding that balance between the battery. It's going to give you enough juice so that it's not going to give you just an hour or two, but also doesn't feel too obtrusive and way down in your pocket.
Right.
So it's very well. It feels no heavier than a smartphone in your pocket.
Right.
And you'll get about on full usage about 5 to 6 hours, depending on obviously your usage and where you are at that time as well.
So what about people in the backcountry and they go out there for a few days?
Yeah.
How do they work that out? Or actually, I presume most people wouldn't need to be heated up for all that period of time, would they? Because they get walking and warm up.
Exactly, you're quite right. So most people, in reality, in practice, we say 6 hours non-stop, but really, like you quite rightly said, if you're wearing it for an hour, you're moving around, your core body temperature's heated up anyway. You're going to turn it off for a little bit and then put it back on again.
Right.
But the easier way around it is just to have more power banks. So just take a couple more power banks with you, have a few charged in your backpack, rucksack, whatever you're taking with you.
Yeah, sure.
You've always got that as well. Now the added benefit of our power bank is we have dual ports. So you can actually plug in another USB cable and charge your phone as well. So not only are you getting heat on demand,
That's pretty cool, actually.
Not only are you getting heat on demand, but you're getting smartphone charge on demand as well.
And that is going to take quite a bit of battery life.
Yeah, that
away.
will. That's the thing that you have to be aware of. Is it is going to deplete your battery life. But sometimes if you need to make that last phone call, you need 5%. Could literally be a lifesaver.
So where can people get them?
So at the moment, exclusively available on our website, which is www.8kflexwarm.com.
8kflexwarm.com.
That's it, and it's free worldwide shipping, so we'll ship to anywhere in the world completely free of charge. We've just at this show launched our new colour collection and the new hooded version as well, so there's lots of a variety of colours. We've got now a hooded one for people like me who live in the northwest of England. That's one just for us.
We call it up north where I come from.
Yeah.
And I'm a southern softie for where he comes from.
That's it, exactly, a bit harder up north. So the main thing that sort of sets our jacket apart from all the others in the world as well is that it has Bluetooth built in.
Yep.
So one of the wonders of technology and FlexWarm is that you can have Bluetooth built into this, and it's the only jacket on earth where you can actually control the temperature from your smartphone too, via the Powered by FlexWarm app. So that is completely unique in the sort of heated apparel
that's
space.
Cool. That is cool. Okay. Well, look, I think it's a great invention. I really do, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Lovely speaking to you. Thank you very much.
I tell you, there were many days on the trail what I could have done with that. It's another smart invention, and as Barry says, the battery just feels like a cell phone in your pocket. With so many applications possible from this technology, I think it's great that the hiking community are getting an early crack at using it. So they were the 3 that I chose to feature this week. I've got loads more, and we'll have another 3 next week. Talking of next week, and in fact the next couple of weeks, my guests will be my closest buddies from the class of 2014, and 2 of the 3 people I finished the trail with, Ken Hall, or Lighter Knot, then Pat Coate or T-Bird. I didn't want to have either of them on the show for the first 58 episodes when I was reading out my books, in which the 2 of them were featured, so I decided long ago that they would complete the first century of shows and then start the second century. It couldn't have worked out better as far as I'm concerned. I'm delighted that you'll be meeting them over the next couple of weeks. To finish up today, we're up to chapter 10 of the year we seized the day. and this is the first part of a long chapter in which Colin reveals a shocking detail from his past that seems to be defining him on this hike, and Elizabeth is struggling to cope with the revelation. I'll see you all for our 100th episode next week. Chapter 10, Day 9, Logroño to Nigeria.
Ellie, haul ass troops. Late in the afternoon, Simon and Mercedes arrive in Logroño. It has been a week to the day since I promised Carl that we would catch them. As it happens, we not only caught up, we passed them somewhere in a town 40 kilometres back up the road. That evening, the four of us cook a meal together in the albergue and share stories from the past week. At the table, Mercedes is still brimming with excitement at having found us again. She is surprised I'm well and pleased to have someone to gossip with. Simon, a naturally reserved and laid-back bloke, is probably happy for the break. Colin puts on a brave face for the occasion, and for a moment it feels almost normal. But Simon sees straight through it, and following the meal, he takes me aside to ask if Colin is okay. He's not, I tell him, but he will be. What more could I say? We agree to set off at different times the next day, going our separate ways and meeting later in Nigeria, 28 kilometres west along the Camino. I wake in the morning to find the swelling has almost disappeared from my left knee. The day's break has made all the difference, though my blistered feet are still tender and squeezing them back inside my boots again is a process. Even with my sock full of soft skin ready to slip from my feet, I feel much better than I did 2 days ago. Colin's tendinitis is still troubling him, but he's being a trooper about it. It will be interesting to see how our bodies react once we start over. We have between 6 and 7 walking hours ahead. As we prepare to set out, neither of us comments on our injuries. Cole lifts the pack onto my back while I turn, slipping my arms through the shoulder straps. I posted 4.5 kilos home the day before. It's supposed to feel lighter. The customary thump on the pack signals the start of another day. Doof! And we're on the road again.
Colin, how to win friends and influence people. You can walk with kings, you can walk with the angels, or you can walk with tendinitis. I know which one I prefer. As the day wears on, my heels get so sore, I'm walking on tiptoe as delicately as a prima ballerina, creeping into a convent school dorm at 4 a.m. Other pilgrims shake their heads when I tell them I have tendinitis. My friend had that, they say. And what happened? Oh, they mutter, his foot had to be amputated. The one thing I learned very quickly on the Camino is that going down is much harder than going up. Going up just spoons lactic acid into your thigh muscles and makes your heart thump like an AM radio in a Louisiana redneck's pickup truck on a Saturday night. But going down jars the cartilage in your knee joint as if scraping paint off a wall and turns your thigh muscles to gelatin. Get the shakes and you could go cartwheeling down the slope like a runaway round of cheese. I tack down hills, a yacht into the teeth of a gale. Ellie has slipped back. So, bored and sore, I pretend I'm the master of a brigantine. I try to distract myself by shouting, "Hard a starboard, Mr. Hardy! And splice the main brace and bugger the cabin boy at the double, if you please, Captain Hornblower." Along the rocky trail that winds between the hills, pilgrims have created little cairns of stones like a fairyland. It's a heartening and unexpected sight that makes me laugh out loud. But then a man reduced to shouting orders to an imaginary nautical colleague to take kindly advantage of an underage boy will probably laugh at anything. Ellie gets a second wind and slips past me again. Did you know there's more water in a banana than in half a watermelon? Or something. Silence. And she forges ahead. From 100 metres behind, I watch her leaning forward to try to extract her water bottle that is hooked on the back of a pack. She looks for all the world like a turtle trying to scratch his own arse. Ahead of us, Navarrete wraps itself round a hill like a cat wrapped round a fire. Swallows swoop and wheel in the square. Storks nest in the bell towers of the churches. It's the European white stork, the cigüeña. Some of the towers have as many as 3 or 4 heavy nests. The call sounds like someone playing a funeral dirge on a castanet. We stop for coffee, and this is the last time I see Ellie that day. The previous day in Logroño, I had bought her some impact absorbers for her boots, inner soles made of silicon rubber. As we reach the square, she turns and shouts at me, "Hey, Krusty, those silicone implants you bought me are just great." I can see the expressions on several faces. "You're old enough to be a father, you sick bastard." I'm tempted to shout back at her, "Yes, but I wish I got you a bigger size now." But I'm not in the mood. Not a good sign. I left my sense of humour, which I admit I've used like body armour, back there in the square at Logroño. How to explain what happened in Logroño? We met for coffee in the square opposite the cathedral. I was in the blackest of moods. For just a minute I dropped my guard. Couldn't help it. Thanks to the Camino, I didn't have a guard left. Without distractions, this indescribable and unfathomable pain had free rein to gnaw away at my defences. I literally did not know what to do with myself. I had to talk to someone. I believe I may have told Ellie that I wanted to die, but I couldn't do anything about that because I had 2 teenage daughters to whom that would cause incalculable damage, and besides, they still depended on me for money and support from time to time. I watched Ellie's face drop. I do not believe she saw this coming. How should she respond to such a declaration? It's not as if she hasn't seen enough hurt and death in her life, but she wasn't ready for this, and it wasn't part of the persona I had adopted. Here is what you should know about me. I left my wife 3 years ago, and she killed herself. But this is not just about guilt. This is sheer panic as well. I am only now starting to acquaint myself with the stranger who lives inside me. I left my marriage because my spirit felt it was shrivelling and dying. My wife was a beautiful woman, inside and out, but we'd grown apart. This was not her doing or her fault. I am both devil and innocent, mugger and victim, stranger to myself and my family. Across the square from where Ellie and I had sat, there was an antique shop called, of all things, Carpe Diem. Carpe Diem is Latin for seize the day. It has a poignancy for me that perhaps I should explain because I realise only now how naive I've been in love with women. When a woman told me I was, to her, the most special man in the world, I could not imagine that she might later be able to explain it away as an aberration or a mistake. Not that it would have made any difference to my utter inability to let her go. I'd met her just before I left my wife. I'd never experienced anything as mystifying or as passionate or as profound as I felt for her. A more circumspect individual might have replaced the lid on this Pandora's box. Would this have saved my wife's life? Was this the right and moral thing to do? But the prospect of living out my days as the man I was then, with so much kept inside, was an unbearable thought. I was no longer the man she had fallen in love with. I'd become a reckless and unfathomable stranger she had fought a rearguard action against for the last dozen years of our marriage. I could not have gone as far as I had in my career without my wife. With her, I felt only lost and trapped. Is it selfish and courageous to choose your own direction to the detriment of someone who has been loyal to you and loved you? Do you instead stay with all that is safe and familiar, the devil you know? Or, when we reach such a crossroads, do we seize the day? My lover once told me that she had reached such a crossroads, and I had whispered to her, "Carpe diem." Seeing the words so unexpectedly and so piercingly there in the square had undone me. It was clear to me that she would not seize the day, at least if that meant moving away from all she had known into uncharted territory. Yesterday, I told Ellie I was at the point of complete despair. Today, how am I supposed to behave? I've no idea. Logroño has not been mentioned since this morning. I'm no longer sure what the outcome of all this will be.
Ellie. Hablo, the local lingo. We make our first stop 3 hours into the morning at Navarrete. It's been a long wait on an empty stomach. Colin sits opposite me and in 3 bites devours a chocolate croissant. He's like a kid with an ice cream on a hot day. Can't eat it fast enough. Then can't believe it's gone. Throwing back my first coffee as if it were water, I order another and prepare some food from my pack. It's still early, just 8:15, and already we've passed the halfway mark for the day. We're getting better at this. It's a pleasant 25 degrees, but a sting in the sun promises a hot day ahead. It's important to take advantage of the morning breeze and push on. We can't stay long. Looking out onto the dirt street, watching the procession of pilgrims, I realise my perspective has changed this side of Logroño. Being back on the trail after time in a city feels strange, I feel caught between wanting to remove myself completely from the Camino crowd and holding on to the small commercial pleasures that have come to mean so much. On the one hand, there are the albergues, with lineups and shower queues, the first in, best dressed policies, the military-style barracks and curfews. The conformity is so rigid and suffocating, it makes me want to dodge the cities, stick with the small refugios and monasteries, or better still, go it alone. On the other hand, Colin couldn't live without chocolate croissant, and I don't function without coffee. After ditching my tub of cocoa butter moisturiser yesterday, coffee is one of the few pleasures I have left. Occasionally you hear of someone who's gone out on their own, or you might see them from a distance. They've packed a tent and traded in their pilgrim's passport. They don't sleep in crowded albergues, they sleep in fields beneath stars. They only enter towns when they need to restock food or water supplies, and they don't speak much. But when they do, you realise that their intentions and their motives are clearly defined. Colin and I are among the greater percentage of pilgrims who stick to more conventional methods. We have both come to realise in recent days that there are significant personal reasons for our being here that run deeper than just the physical challenge. It's like an intuition you can't explain, yet know to trust. There are questions we must ask, conclusions we must come to, and answers we both hope to find. But ironically, neither of us has a clue what they might be. The number of towns and villages we pass through every day is convenient. One every couple of hours. They are not like the towns I'm used to. They range from villages with supermarkets, bars, cafes and shade, to a gathering of dilapidated shacks where the only liquid comes from a water fountain bearing the warning agua no potable. But most at least offers some kind of refuge from thirst, hunger, heat and even isolation. Sometimes it's just nice to hear a voice after 3 hours of undisturbed silence, regardless of the language. The locals generally take very good care of pilgrims. It's a tradition they have nurtured for hundreds of years. In return, these small communities are rewarded with our tourist dollars. 2 days ago, the owner of the albergue in Torres del Rio explained that her family had sold their farm to build the establishment 18 months prior to this Jacobean year. A Jacobean, or Holy Year, is any year in which the feast day of St. James, 25th of July, falls on a Sunday, and as such is the highlight of the Camino's Christian calendar. To complete the Camino in a Holy Year is to earn plenary indulgence, a one-way ticket to the afterlife. It is, quite literally, a highway to heaven. As a result, the number of participants in 1999 nearly doubled those of the previous year, and even more are expected this year. Following the earlier success, her family, along with many similarly entrepreneurial locals, hope to cash in. Having such a popular pathway run through your backyard is a lucrative commodity. They're aware of the benefits and pilgrims are prepared to pay. This is the way it has been through history. We are fed, sheltered and supported at a fraction of what it would usually cost to travel. We can walk into any cafe or bar in any town, village or city and use the bathroom, have our bottles filled with cold water from behind the bar, ask for directions or even a bag of ice for injuries. Most establishments have set a pilgrim menu consisting of 3 dishes, bread and a bottle of wine, tinto or blanco, all for around €8. If you are watching your pilgrim dollar, you can still sit at one of their tables while preparing a meal from your own food supplies. They may even heat it for you if you have the temerity to ask. If you're willing to put in a little effort, be polite and attempt to speak the local language, you'll find everything you need and it will generally be delivered with a smile. Pilgrims are easily identified among the local bar crowd. Ratty clothes, sweaty brow, backpack, scallop shells, walking sticks, and the distinctive limp every pilgrim inevitably develops. Pilgrims are not your average travellers, and besides, not many tourists visit these parts. There are few large cities, and the attractions of rural village life pale in comparison to action-packed Barcelona or Madrid. Struck with a sudden urgency to leave, I give Cole the nod. He lifts his head from the guidebook, hoists the bag onto my back, once more, doof, and we're gone.